Alexander of the New Radicals. You got the new album, Maybe You've Been Brainwashed Too. So what are you suggesting with that title?
Maybe You've Been Brainwashed Too is the whole idea behind the band, or at least part of it, and the album, this particular album, is the commercialization of society, where it's so out of control that when people are watching like 5 hours of TV a day and they're being,
like
fed propaganda, by the, where kids go into school and they have credit card companies trying to get them in debt. As soon as you turn 18, they want you in debt at 20%. And, pretty much where society is going, the Americanization of the world, and how it's a destructive force. It's causing a global collapse.
Well, in the song, it does seem like a real tirade against racism, sexism, politics, governments, banks, the whole 9 yards. But I'm wondering, just as a human being, how does one foster their own individual perspective as opposed to being brainwashed? How do you come up, are we collections of just other people's ideas, or how do you actually go, okay, I've got a perspective on this, and this is wrong, this is right, and you set a way of living?
Well, I think the good thing about Canada, and maybe with Europe, as opposed to America, is there's a little bit of a perspective on it, because you don't live right in the eye of the storm. But in America in particular, which is where all the media and messages are coming out from, through TV and movies and music, there's just this whole Melrose Place corporate mentality, which, on some levels there's hypocrisy all around us. We all can't completely separate ourselves from it. I drive in a car and there's gasoline from some evil oil company, perhaps, or making a record with a record company that's a multinational. But I would say maybe a little bit of the sentiment is using the system to maybe start a word of mouth amongst kids and even adults, all of us, to realize that the machinery that has built up the superficial American dream is the exact same machinery that, in theory, could be the downfall of mankind in the next 20 years if we're not careful with what's happening with, all the cliche things, the ozone layer, big business just dehumanizing everything. It's almost like everybody's being replaced by computers. It's like the dehumanization of society, where we're all obsolete. We're all basically a barcode.
How do you maintain your humanity then?
Oh, it's a difficult thing to say. I would say maybe, I would say talking about and thinking about and experiencing a variety of situations and, economic circumstances, and having a wide variety of friends, and not just staying within the bubble we were born into. You know what I mean?
Do you think growing up or having a formative musical and life education in Detroit being a pretty intense place where there's a big gap between rich and poor.
Oh,
do you think that informed your perspective?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Where I'm from is a place called Grosse Pointe, and my father was a plumber, and we were kind of like the dark horses of the neighborhood. It was like a lot of real snobby people, and it gave me a perspective at a young age that there's this whole idealization of the upper classes, and when in fact it's a really dysfunctional element of society that's really snobbish and really doesn't have a lot of love or care for the other 90% of society who can, barely afford to raise their children. Because that's what we're having now. We have a situation where, unless you run a bank, or unless you're own a car dealership, you can't even afford to feed your family or kids, can't get an education.
This idea,
they can't get it's hard to get into college.
Yeah, the whole class.
Unless you've got unless you want to get in debt for $300,000,
This idea of brainwash, even on your music in itself, there's a lot of songs like happy yet tortured love songs. This idea of love as brainwash.
No, not really. No, I would
do you think so? You don't think the state of love is kind of almost like a weird?
I would say that there's maybe some elements of that. Yeah, we're human beings, and we're all filled with errors and and human qualities. We're born to make mistakes. But I would say that hopefully in our personal life and with our families and stuff like that, everybody does the best that they can, hopefully. But I genuinely believe, and it's one of the motivations for going out here and singing the songs and traveling and stuff like that, is that if we have a whole society that starts becoming a little bit more conscious of the machinery around us, maybe a little bit more cynical about their bank or their the automakers or the oil companies or credit card companies, instead of being cynical about you know, the more trite things. People make fun of fat people, but they don't spend as much time being critical of the things that are holding them down systematically. Sexism, for instance.
What about religion? Like, I was reading in your bio, it makes reference to your mom having to choose a variety of different religions, and then finally coming across being a Jehovah's Witness, and you have some references to Jehovah's Witnesses in your music. What about, like, do you see religion as a basis of some amount of brainwash?
Actually, that was a really, really profound in the formative years of my life, was seeing the intense hypocrisy with religions. Like, you know, this is the right religion and you can't be that. Like the Catholics, the Lutherans, they're always like, in theory, up in arms with each other, you know? And I would say that if people tried to have more of a personal relationship, when I say a personal relationship with their creator, in other words, if people made religion and God more about, you know, the beautiful earth we live in, and you know, as opposed to like using it as an excuse to like try to control other people's lives, because that's what religion's become. It's become a tool for politics, become a money tool. It's become an excuse to keep minorities and, you know, sexism and all of these, like, you know, these out of control giants just growing and growing, when right now we're in a time where, as mankind is evolving, we'd like to see those things, all of us, I think, you know, become a part of the past, hopefully. And I think we have a really big responsibility if we're making music or in the film business or you know, doing programming like, you know, what you guys are doing here with music, to maybe put those sentiments out there, because otherwise we're just building up to a really bad scene really soon.
Yeah. Well, it's sort of like people set,
not to get heavy.
People set against each other, like through class differences or religious differences, all those sort of, I don't know, fights set up to fight in that way. In one of your songs, in the You Get What You Give single, you kind of come out and diss Beck and Courtney Love and Marilyn Manson, calling them fakes. Why is that? What's the point there? Actually,
the point with that was, because a lot of people ask me about that, is it ties into the whole concept of maybe you've been brainwashed too, which is it the media or the people that are perpetuating all the bull crap, for lack of a better term, all the peripheral stupid things that everybody focuses on, like worrying about what somebody wears to a movie premiere, or like focusing on the sex scandal in America, which is just a joke. Well, everybody's focusing on the sex scandal. They're not paying, you know, with Clinton, nobody's paying attention to the real issues. And the more relevant part of that lyric, and You Get What You Give, is the first part, which is health insurance, rip-off lying, FDA, big bankers buying, fake computer crashes, dining, cloning while they're multiplying. Then the lyric right after it is, you know, the fashion shoots with Beck and Hansen, Courtney Love and Marilyn Manson, you're all fakes, run to your mansions, come around, we'll kick your ass, which is a little bit more of like a, you know, childish, you know, a little bit more of a statement about pop culture and where pop culture is. And I put the lyric out there, and what I wanted to see, and what we all wanted to see, was whether the media and whether the people in the media focused on the lyric about, you know, Beck and all that kind of stuff, or whether they focused on the fact that we have banks and the Food and Drug Administration, which, you know, puts, you know, poisonous medicines on the market, and there's all kinds of horrible things going on. And do people care about the pop culture part, or the things that actually are affecting our life? And when I'm out on the streets and I meet people who know the song, people always ask me about the first part of the lyric, what's that about the health, you know, the health insurance rip-off line, all that stuff, because it's a little bit more, it hits close to home. The people care about that, but the media want to, not you, but, you know, in general, like foster the more unimportant part of it, like, you know, the lyric about the other singers. So I would say that was a little bit of a test of the emergency broadcast system of pop culture, to see whether it's pop culture that's going in the wrong direction. It turns out it is, because everybody asked about that lyric.
Well, there's an audacious line, and too, a lot of people like Beck are you know, human people, fostering interesting and good messages.
Yeah, potentially, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. But you're in the eye of the storm of pop culture. How do you, what's your solution? How do you weigh that out for yourself?
The solution to what in particular?
To living. Like, how do you justify being on a major label?
Well, that's the whole thing. It's about using the machinery to forward a word of mouth and a grassroots effort, and, you know, people caring about real things. Let's see what happens. I mean, I think that's going to be the interesting thing about this band, is to see what it mutates into, because we're kind of going on on a limb with it.
Right.
It's safer to just go up to just be apolitical and just kind of, you know, play by all the rules and be like, you know, slap everybody's back. But I think by trying to make a comment about where society is right now, that's going to be more of a calculated risk in terms of whether, you know, whether the people are going to back us up. Because that's what this is ultimately about. Rock and roll is supposed to be about the people, you know.
So that, your sentiment would be the new radical idea behind the New Radicals.
Yeah,
all right. Well, thank you, Greg, and good luck. You're going to be playing your last show in Toronto tonight at Lee's Palace. Right now, you get what you give. Thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you.